Universal, what are you thinking with Fast and the Furious? Because you're making us fans really furious. What am I talking about? We're going to talk about it coming up on Hollow Gelato. Hollow Gelato Familia, George the Disney Italiano here, your host with the most. I got my good friend here, theme park conductor, aka Choo Choo, and we're here to talk about the Fast and the Furious coming to Universal Orlando, but in a much complex, complicated way of that I think we all were expecting, but we didn't want in that sense. But we're going to get in all to the finer details. But beforehand, theme park conductor, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me back on Hollow Gelato. It's good to kind of get out of that sickness I've been dealing with for the last couple weeks now, dealing with the flu that's going around everywhere. Even Hollow Gelato even had it at one point or another. It's just been a nonstop battle between that and trying to get back into the swing of things. But so glad to be talking about this because I have a lot of opinions that I can rant and rave about, and we're the two best content creators to rant and rave because we love doing it on topics we feel passionate
It's
about.
our specialty.
It's absolutely our specialty. Are you kidding me? I live for this. This is why I beat the flu to live for this. Come on, man.
Absolutely. So I just have to ask you before we get into it, like again, with you being Mr. Theme Park Conductor and when you're sick, does that put a whole new meaning when you sneeze and you go, ah chew, ah chew?
Actually, it does. It does. It does bring up a new meaning of you see this you see this train with this happy conductor going down the rails, and the train's looking all happy and excited, and then the dark side of it, when you're sick or when I'm sick, you see the train kind of huffing and puffing and looking all sad, and then you look at the conductor and his hat's all kind of flipped down, and then he has a big like thermometer sticking out of his mouth. That's when you know I'm sick or I'm just missing an action period and George
So
gets low.
basically, it's sort of like the scene with Casey Jr. It's that I thought I could, I thought I could, I thought I could.
Pretty much. Pretty much.
Yeah.
You're not wrong.
But in any case, I'm glad to see you back up on your feet. I know you're not like 100%, but I am glad that you are getting better. So that way we can get back into our niche of what we do best, and that is come on here, have great discussions, and give our absolute straight up opinion on things. And this topic today definitely is not going to disappoint people on our opinions. But in any case, yeah, let's get right into it. So uh at the time of this recording yesterday, January 20th, actually no, I'm going to go back a little bit further into the past. A couple days prior to yesterday, which was January 20th, Universal released a little teaser. um I guess you can call it a meme. I guess you can, where it shows like a car speedometer, where it shows like the miles per hour, and you see it like going up and everything, and everyone was taking their guesses of what it could be. I knew I was wrong, but I was really hoping it was a sign for Back to the Future. But unfortunately, it didn't hit 88 miles per hour, so I knew. I think it only reached like 70, and plus the DeLorean has a way different system of how it looks. Like that actually looked like a car that would be used for Fast and Furious. And I thought, oh dear God, no, they are not. That they are actually going to announce that the replacement for Rip Ride Rocket is going to be Fast and Furious, the roller coaster that's coming out here to Universal Studios Hollywood. Well, sure enough, yesterday, January 20th, Universal dropped what everyone was, what everyone was thinking, that they are indeed putting in, and this is the kicker for me, they're still titling it the same, Fast and the Furious Hollywood Drift, down in the New York area of the studios where Rip Ride Rocket was placed. Now, I do know a lot of people say that Rip Ride Rocket was called Hollywood Rip Ride Rocket. I I get that in a sense, but the thing was Rip Ride Rocket really had no IP attached to it. It was just a roller coaster. You can kind of fit it in anywhere. Where I know that this roller coaster isn't really going to have heavy theming, but it's still attached to an IP, which is the Fast and the Furious. Now, I'll get into what my personal thoughts on it, but I'll save mine for last because I know, Conductor, you and I were talking about it on the phone earlier. So I'll actually start with you because I know you have some very strong opinions on this decision by Universal.
I do. And I want to make it very clear before I go on my rant because sometimes I could get caught up on what I say. It's not that I'm trying to be negative. I want to make that very clear. It's more of I feel very passionate on what these theme park companies give us, whether it's Walt Disney or whether it's Comcast Universal. So my opinion on this is Fast and Furious Hollywood Drift out here in Universal Studios Hollywood is a state of the art roller coaster with 180 or 360 motion um vehicles based off some of the classic iconic characters of the Fast and Furious franchise. And what makes our coaster unique is one, it's on a hillside and it replaced two shows, Animal Actors, and it replaced the Castle Theater that was, clay host to um shows during, the Christmas season, during especially Halloween Horror Nights, and we lost those two shows to fit this roller coaster in. On top of that, not even a couple hundred yards away, we have an active movie studio that generates hundreds of millions of dollars each year for Hollywood and for entertainment around the world. So the problem I have is you have Universal Orlando, which has all this space, and which Universal Studios Hollywood does not have that luxury. And at the same time, Universal Orlando was tearing down Rip Ride Rocket. They were preparing for the new coaster. And this teaser that George from Hello Gelato was talking about, where we're looking at the speedometer, you know, it rubs me the wrong way because I kind of feel that Universal Studios Hollywood should have kept the Hollywood Drift Coaster to themselves, had something unique. And the fact that a resort, and I'm calling Universal Orlando a resort because it clay hosts to multiple theme parks, one or two water parks, dozens of hotels, and a lot to do out there. And yet they feel that it would be a better option, a cheaper option to copy in a way to copy the intimate roller coaster that we're getting out here in Universal Hollywood, to play to place a identical coaster, with some changes, obviously, because it's a different footprint. It's ground level. It's not on a hillside, but basically the same thing with the vehicles that are going to do the exact same thing that we're getting out here. And the worst crime out of all of it, and I mean all of it. It's not the fact that we got a second Fast and Furious coaster. It's the mere fact that they called it the exact same name, which makes 0 sense to me, which in all due respect, they couldn't have called it Orlando Drift. They couldn't have called it something to do with, New York Street to kinda tie that in. They kinda called it a completely different name, and they chose not to do that. The second problem I have is, like George says, why couldn't it have been Ghostbusters? It's on New York Street. Ghostbusters fits New York. Why couldn't it be New York? I don't know, because when you look at Rip Ride Rocket, part of the track goes right through a fire station. That's why we kinda got that hint from. And then when they put the walls up before Rip Ride Rocket, officially started demolition, but it was closed, but they started demolition or were about to, there were posters and stuff on the construction wall on New York Street, possibly hinting at Ghostbusters, not a direct reference, but a possible hint. So we we didn't go with Ghostbusters, and obviously Comcast Universal has a broad library of IP they could have used. They could have used, like I said, they could have used Ghostbusters. They could have used Jaws, which actually they lost their Jaws attraction to make way for Diagon Alley. So that would have been a great homage to build a coaster based off Jaws, which they didn't. Then they could have went with Battlestar Galactica to kind of tie into what Universal Hollywood back in its heyday with the studio tour once had as an experience where the tram went through that area. They could have went with Terminator, which was another attraction that both Universal Orlando and Universal Hollywood had, and now is gone. They kind of went with that. They kind of went with a whole bunch of other different IPs, but they chose Fast and the Furious. And I'm going to leave this part to George because I know he wants to say it for part of his opinion. But I just find it interesting that Universal Comcast, being one of the most brilliant companies out there, besides Walt Disney, for theme parks and entertainment, to basically pull a Disney move and think about numbers compared to entertainment and IP, that's where I have a problem because when you look at perfect example, Galaxy's Edge, what did the Walt Disney Company do? They basically built Galaxy's Edge in Disneyland, which was supposed to be this Star Wars land that we were looking forward to, which turned out to be a big disappointment. And then what they do? They literally carbon copied every square foot of Galaxy's Edge out here in Anaheim and built it in Hollywood Studios out in Walt Disney World. So when I see Universal, which everybody knows on the show, and even on my show when I have Hello Gelato come on my show, I praise Universal a lot more than I do Disney for their creativity, for their ingenuity, for just some of the amazing things they have given us over the years. And then when I see something like this, it kind of damages my 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 opinion a little bit about Universal, and I try to take a step back and try to understand why Universal would go down this road. Then I think, well, maybe it was a money thing. Maybe they saved money by paying Intimate for two identical coasters with two identical ride vehicles, maybe different track layout. Because again, Universal Studios Hollywood, their track is built on a hillside compared to where Rip Ride Rocket was, where it's all flat. So obviously the tracks are going to be a little different, but pretty similar. But the ride vehicles are going to be identical. So maybe Universal got a good deal. But then again, it's like we're not paying, because I always consider us people that own annual passes or Magic Keys. I don't consider us visitors of these theme parks. I consider us investors of these theme parks. And when I'm paying the money that these theme parks want to charge for tickets, for annual passes, for Magic Keys, for food items, for merch items, for after dark events, and so on and so on and so on, the last thing I expect now, in today's age, where AI is starting to be introduced throughout the world and possibly the theme parks in the next 5 to 10 years, I don't expect to see a attraction based off a franchise that really kind of has done some damage, in my opinion, to the Universal IP. Look at Universal Hollywood. We had two Fast and Furious attractions that flopped. One was the dancing car thing on the studio tour. The second thing was also on the studio tour, which was supercharged, which Universal Orlando still has right now, but is planning to close it due to now Fast and Furious Hollywood Drift, or I'm going to call it Orlando Drift because that's the name they shouldn't use. Universal or Fast and Furious Orlando Drift, once that is open, their supercharged, which everybody hates, is going to close. But again, my bottom line is we have a franchise that hasn't really done well in the parks, and then they pull a stunt by sitting there and copying both the East Coast and the West Coast together. Then it kind of entices people to say people on the East Coast to go visit Universal Hollywood. It's like, why am I going to pay money for tickets, for hotel stays, for theme park tickets to go visit something where I could pay less money and go visit it at Universal Orlando, and then vice versa for me and George that live on the West Coast to now go fly to the East Coast, spend all this money on tickets, hotels, flights to go experience basically the same thing that we have out here in Hollywood. It makes no sense. And I kind of wish Universal Comcast, being as brilliant as they are, this is kind of a black spot moment for them. And I really hope to God, as they're building this coaster in Orlando, they really kind of take a step back. Maybe they throw a survey out online, or maybe they do, they kill, they, how can I put it? They do the best of both worlds. They send an online survey, and then they ask guests in the park about this name and see if the name can change, because they don't have a marquee built yet for this attraction. They're just barely putting the footings in for the coaster. So they still have time to change the name, which I think they need to do. Hopefully they do so, because I could tell you right now, it is not going to entice people to go visit the East Coast and for East Coasters to visit the West Coast if they're going to keep the same name. It's massively confusing. But George, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything you said, I completely understand. I completely agree with. As I said, we talked on the phone earlier. We both kind of have the same mindset. A couple things that I do want to add. Where I think Universal went wrong was right when they decided to close down Rip Ride Rocket, and they said for a new experience, and they eventually said, okay, it's going to be a roller coaster replacing a roller coaster. Was like, okay, well, what's the roller coaster? I think they should have literally ripped the Band-Aid off right then and there if they already knew it was going to be a carbon copy of the one that they're making out here and just say, you know what, we're doing Fast and the Furious. I think from them dragging it on and in keeping us in the dark and not letting us know what it is, and then by the time they do make that announcement, it's like, oh yeah, well, it's just Fast and the Furious. That's where they were building up our anticipation, and then they just dropped it down with a mallet. That, I think Universal, I think that was bad publicity on their end of how they handled it. Secondly, I think also too, I feel like Universal is stuck between a rock and a hard place, and I'm not 100% sure. And I'm not downing this person. I'm not criticizing him. I'm just saying of how I think it's going. I think when it comes to the Fast and the Furious franchise, it is attached with Vin Diesel, and I feel like Vin Diesel has a very opinionated thought process of having something in Universal within the parks, and I feel like that's where Supercharged came in. I feel like that's where you were saying about the dancing cars, you know, part of the tram tour and what have you. And again, now even with Fast and Furious Hollywood Drift, I feel like Universal is basically just doing the bare minimum of theming when it comes to the Fast franchise, because it's to appease him, or maybe it's something written in a clause or a contract that, you know, he has to be part of, you know, something in the theme park realm of Universal when it comes to the Fast and the Furious franchise. That's why I think Universal is doing a doppelganger, even though I do agree with you. I'm not a fan of those copycat mirrored attractions. Only from international parks I am okay with. Bring the international attractions over here, because Lord knows we need them. When it comes to a domestic attraction with another domestic attraction, no, I love originality. But I think the reason why they are doing it is to appease him or whoever else is under this umbrella, because I feel like in time, once they kind of get their feel to say, okay, yeah, here's your Fast and Furious attraction, they can easily retheme that coaster to anything that they want. And I feel like that's why they even made that announcement. And I actually heard it come from Universal Creative when I went to the LA Comic-Con when they did that panel. And they said, really, Fast and the Furious Hollywood Drift really doesn't have anything to do with Fast and the Furious. It's to pay tribute to the men and women in the entertainment industry and Hollywood that are stunt performers. That's basically, but they just tied it into Fast and Furious. Why? Because I think there's something there that has to do with like a clause or a contract between the actors of Fast and Furious and the Universal theme parks and experiences. Now, you had mentioned it and I had mentioned it. A big piece of the puzzle too, why I feel like that they're replicating for Fast and the Furious, is Supercharged. Supercharged has already been removed from the tram tour out here in Hollywood, thank God. And the last piece of it is basically an entire attraction. See, I in Orlando, it's not part of a tram tour. It's its own actual attraction where you actually stand in line in a queue to just ride that experience. And I feel like Universal, rather than, okay, having to upset the actors, whether it's Vin Diesel, whether it's Dwayne The Rock Johnson, whether it's Tyrese, you know, or whoever, Ludacris, I don't know, you know, but it's almost like that they have to put in a substitute for now for Fast and the Furious for the roller coaster, since they're already making it out here. And I think the bigger light at the end of the tunnel is so that they can get rid of Supercharged, because I feel like once they do that, that's where I feel like a big kind of like e-ticket kind of immersive, maybe dark ride or something, is going to go in that spot. And maybe that's what they're holding for Ghostbusters. So they may be kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul, so to speak, where they have to deal with one to take care of the other. Then down the road, once Supercharged is gone, they put in whatever is to replace Supercharged. They have Fast and the Furious, as you call it, Orlando Drift, there for a while. Then maybe down the road they could then retheme that roller coaster when everyone kind of has their cake and eat it too, so to speak. That's where I think the bigger picture is. I think it's not necessarily of replacing Rip Ride Rocket. It's to get Supercharged out of there. Because there's a lot of Universal team members that when they do those surveys, in-park surveys,
Sure.
and they ask, what is your least favorite attraction to the guests? And they're not shy about it. They'll say, other than Supercharged, because they know automatically every single guest is going to say Supercharged is the worst attraction ever made, I think, in any theme park.
You're not wrong. You're really not wrong. And I think, George, you were with me the last day. Yeah, you were with me the last day that Supercharged at Universal Studios Hollywood, part of the tram tour, the finale of the tram tour. We actually, it was funny. It was hilarious. So, if anyone's been to Universal Studios Hollywood and gone on the tram tour, you know how the queue system works for that. Well, to the very far left, next to the tram office where the employees go and whatnot for the tram crew, there's like a couple rows for express and bilingual tram tours. Well, we all kind of waited around. There was so many of us. There was Mouse Vibe. I think Mouse Vibes was there. Me and you were there. Who else was there? We had Theme Park Wizard. We had
Universal
Dylan.
High.
Yeah, Universal High. We had Dylan from Theme Park Obsession. We had I think Ordinary Adventures was there. I think.
Yes, I think they were. I believe
Okay.
they were. Yeah.
So there was a handful, and a lot of these content creators, not all of them, but a handful of them were from the East Coast. That's what cracked me up. So we're all waiting in this line for a couple hours, probably like 3 hours. So we're all waiting to the very last tram tour. I mean, the very, very last of the day, because I think the studio closed for tram tours at like 6. I think.
Yeah. We were the last tram running for guests.
Yeah, for guests.
Tram. Yeah.
So it was 6 p.m. So we all loaded on because they had a cutoff, but we all loaded on the last tram, and literally, I kid you not, it was the funniest thing ever in my life. As soon as we hit, we started going in the King Kong. That's when the motivation started. Everyone's singing and interacting with.
I do have to say, for as much of a scene and an attraction that is so well hated in the community,
yeah,
everyone came together to find the positiveness of that attraction, where they were repeating the lines that the actors were saying. And then as you said, like after the fact that it was done, everyone was singing the "See You Again" as we were like disbarring off the tram. So I mean, I have to say, to literally turn lemons into lemonade. I love the enthusiasm that everyone brought to the final ride for Supercharged.
It was crazy because it started out with King Kong. Then we went from King Kong, we went through the Western sets and whatnot. Then we got to Earthquake. Then we did we went to Jaws next. Then we circled around, went through the oh my god. What's that one stop? Oh my gosh. The rain effect scene was that. Um,
Oh yeah, in that little oh my gosh, the Spanish little
yeah,
thing, rains
yeah,
and a floods. Yeah,
yeah, pretty much. And then we went to Earthquake, and then after Earthquake, then the motivation really pumped up because
and
then we're in
then we went through
Bates
the
Motel.
I think it was the Bates Motel, War of the Worlds, and then we got to Nope.
That's when it got
When we
exciting.
were done with Nope, that's when you just heard every single vehicle of that like start to erupt because then
Oh,
we
oh
knew what
my
was coming.
gosh. Literally, I kid you not, it was literally the most fun I've ever had on the studio tour going through Fast and Furious Supercharged. Everyone, like George was saying earlier, everyone was singing and everyone was repeating every line for line for line for line for line. It was the most hilarious thing. And then,
And then we also got delayed a couple times because
it did.
they were filming the series The Burbs starring
Yes.
Keke Palmer. So
It,
we had to be quiet in certain areas while they were filming.
Yeah, so it was an extra long studio tour, but as soon as we got to the first scene of Supercharged, and you have the a bunch of girls and guys dancing in a warehouse. I literally could see all the shadows on the studio tour tram cars. Everyone's just dancing, having a good time, singing. I kid you not. I'm not making this up. It was hilarious. And then we get to the next scene. Okay, so we're getting chased by Shaw's men, and everyone's just getting excited, screaming, hollering, and all that. Really getting engaged, right? Okay, so as soon as we go, the tram, it's fake. Tram goes off the bridge and jumps into the one of the studio buildings, and all this fog shoots up, right? The second that happens, I have never heard the tram tour, each car be so loud ever in my life, cheering, singing, yelling, excitement, clapping, just full of emotion. And then we were doing this all the way to where we got dropped off at. And then as soon as, like George said, as soon as we got off, this one guy, I forgot what his I think he has a YouTube channel, but I can't remember his name worth my life. But he starts singing really loud. Like, I mean really loud. And he's filming and we're all filming. So no one put their camera away yet. So we're all filming this guy singing really loud. We start singing with him. It was like an encore. It was like we were on the 50-yard line at the Super Bowl and we're all singing as a chorus. It was ridiculous. It's funny because everyone's looking at us like, what in the hell's going on around here? And we're just all singing and just having a good time. And then it's funny because as we're going up the escalators, we see the employees of the studio tram tour, which I thought was amazing. They did this for them. They actually loaded up all the employees for the studio tram tour crew and they ran them through Supercharged one more time. And all of us that just got done writing it for the public's last time writing it, we're all on the kind of bridge looking over and we're waving at the team members. The team members are waving at us. Literally, it was the best interaction with a group of people between us and team members I have ever seen at a theme park. And it's funny that a attraction like that is kind of has mixed reviews but mostly hated, brought so many people together. That was amazing.
Yeah, that is very true. Um, and I'm for sure, they'll probably get people done in Orlando like the last day for Supercharge, for content reasons. I'm very curious to see if they have the same outcome of the final day that we did out here, because the Supercharged is attached to the Tram Tour out here. That is over in Orlando. It's just a separate uh, attraction. So
Yeah.
they may have the same kind of like warm send off that we did out here, or they may say final day here, we'll help you with the wrecking ball. It's like, you just you never know. But I did want to share this really quick. And this comes from Mr. Scott Guston, and it just gave a little bit of information of how they were describing, like of how they were going to, that they're building this roller coaster out in Orlando. And it says, new Fast and Furious Hollywood Drift is officially racing into Universal Studios Florida in 2027. The high-speed coaster will feature 360-degree drifting vehicles and a 170-foot vertical spike, opening next year on the former Hollywood Rip Ride Rocket site. And then I'm gonna have to find the other one that I was looking for was and then at the time that they released that that with Supercharged, like immediately, like they made no hesitation that when they announced that, Hollywood Drift, or as conductor calls it, Orlando Drift, that as soon as they made that announcement, along with it, they announced that Supercharged was closing. So this came from the Orlando Informer. Just announced Universal Studios Florida's Fast and Furious Supercharged will be permanently closing in 2027. So obviously, both pieces of information was released at the exact same time, and one's opening in 2027 and one's closing in 2027. So coincidence? I think not. So there's definitely a much bigger picture to be had with these decisions. I just wish Universal would have done it in a different way. Even if it came to the same outcome, I just wish that they would have their PR team would have came up with a better plan to make these announcements.
No, absolutely. I again, I share my frustration that they wanted to go this route. And again, like George says, you know, there could have been a mixture of reasons why they did this, because they might have had to deal with Vin Diesel. Vin Diesel might have had to deal with Universal, or Universal theme parks might have had to deal with the Fast and Furious franchise for an X amount of years. There could be hundreds of reasons why. I just personally am going to stand by my word and just say that I don't personally like it. Now, I'm going to tell you this because George and I, as probably some of you may know, or maybe none of you know, we are planning on going back to Florida in 2027 to go check out Tropical Americas and Walt Disney World and Animal Kingdom, and possibly see if, Monstropolis is open in the Hollywood Studios. If at that time, I'm going to be honest with you folks, if at that time their version of Hollywood Drift, which again, like George kindly says, I call it Orlando Drift, is open, I definitely want to check that out to see what it's all about, because obviously it's going to be a different track layout, but the same experience in a way. Um, but am I going to make a separate trip to go experience that? No. If again, if it's convenient and it's open at the same time me and George are down there to go cover something else, by all means, I'll buy a ticket. I'll go check it out. Am I running to it? Absolutely not.
And who knows, maybe we'll be having our annual passes for Universal Orlando by then as well. So
Possibly, it's a possibility. But again, it's just something I kind of feel Universal copped out and played a Disney move, and I don't know if I respect that or I totally disrespect that.
I do
So
think it's kind of a double-edged sword, though, of that if Disney really did make this move that Universal just did, which there are times Disney does, and the fandom gives them nothing but hell over it.
yeah,
But yet, when Universal does it, there's not a peep.
not
Like,
yet.
so I mean, but I mean, like, even if it does, even if people do, I don't know, for some reason, it's almost like the fandom, like, just holds Disney to this much higher standard that, like, when they do it, it's like everyone comes down on Disney, like, all at the same time, like, they obliterate them.
Well,
Where I feel like with Universal is, like, people will still mention it, it'll be brought up,
sure.
but then it's an afterthought.
Well, see, this is where I'm glad you brought this up because this is where, and please tell me if I'm wrong, but the way I see it is when you look at Disney, the reason, in my personal opinion, why they hold why fans hold the Disney company at a higher standard than Universal, because Universal, in a way, how can I put it? They they don't have the history that Disney has. And the reason I say that is because Walt started it with a vision, with him sitting at um at the park in the Hollywood Hills, watching his kids go on the merry-go-round that still is there today, but is not open. I think they're refurbing it or something. Um, but he had a vision, okay? And what Disneyland is today and what Walt Disney World is today, and then parks around the world really kind of tied back to Walt's vision when he was building Disneyland and is sprouted out from there. When you look at Universal, you don't really have that history. You don't. You have Carl Lumley that had Universal Studios movie lot, had nothing to do with a theme park, just a movie lot, and then it transpired into a theme park eventually. But Carl Lumley, as far as I know, didn't really have that type of mindset. He was more about the studios and he was more about, you know, doing movies and TV shows and stuff like that. Obviously, over the years of the studios early on, people were allowed to go on the film sets and be like a live studio audience for, you know, silent films and then over a couple more decades they had TV shows that filmed on the lot, which again they had a live studio audience. But when you do a comparison between Universal and Disney, Disney has that history that all ties back to Walt and his vision, and Universal really doesn't. Am I wrong?
No, no, absolutely. I completely agree with you. There will only be one Walt Disney, and
Yeah.
there will never be not even just another Walt Disney, but the way his experience and his journey ended up becoming what the Walt Disney Company is today. We will never see anything like that probably again in our lifetime
No.
of how this one man with one suitcase, $40 in his pocket and a dream, you know, came out to California and created an empire, a dynasty, if you will, of a movie studio, a television, music, theme parks, just everything of what captivates fans today. Yeah, there is no comparison. So yeah, I feel like that there's more heart and soul to the name of Disney than there is of Universal. Now, I'm not saying that as a crack to Universal, it's just what it is. That's where I think what you're saying, like where people hold Disney to that higher standard as opposed to Universal. Now, I do want to bring this up because it is on that same subject matter, but
Sure.
just like the recent news that came out that Disney said that they're bringing back the original Star Wars characters into Galaxy's Edge. Literally, I kid you not, folks, days after Conductor and I were in Galaxy's Edge trying the pink milk. And he literally said to me, we were recording, and I was recording Kylo Ren and the stormtroopers interrogating the guests and everything. And I believe I got him on camera with him saying this. Either I did or he got himself on camera. So definitely go back and check out our video, our vlogs, either on Holo Gelato or Theme Park Conductor, and also on a few of my Holo Gelato shorts because it's somewhere on there, where he said to me just out of nowhere, you know, like, wouldn't it be cool that if they had Darth Vader walking around, but they also had the traditional stormtroopers? And I'll be damned, several days later, Disney dropped the ball and they said they're bringing back not even bringing back, they're just bringing the original characters into Galaxy's Edge. Luke Skywalker, Leia, Han Solo, Darth Vader, and the original stormtroopers. Now, Kylo Ren is going to go into the Visa card building over in Tomorrowland where Darth Vader resides now. And Vader's going to walk around with his stormtrooper. So they're kind of doing the old switcheroo. But I just had to mention that first and foremost because I thought that was amazing. That Conductor literally pulled a me that the second he said something, Disney was listening. And they're like, you know what? Yeah, he said it. We're already planning it. Let's just announce it. Now,
Exactly.
I want to mention that because now online you have people who are either this is part of the Disney community, the Star Wars community, or people that just have nothing better to do than to try to stir up a conversation.
Sure.
And not a good conversation, more like an argumentative conversation. They're saying now that Disney is ruining Galaxy's Edge by changing what Galaxy's Edge was meant to be, by having it as the sequels, by reverting it back to the original characters. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. That all people have been saying since Galaxy's Edge opened, why can't we get all the characters in the Star Wars universe? Why can't we have Luke? Why can't we have Leia? Why can't we have Vader? Now Disney is answering to that. Now, I think it's kind of pathetic that it took them this long, but okay, that took them this long. But the fact is that they're doing it. But now people are reverting their statement by saying, no, you can't touch Galaxy's Edge. It's going to ruin the whole timeline. And you have to keep of how Galaxy's Edge is. It's supposed to be an original world, Batuu, that is in the timeline of the sequels. And I'm like, good God, people, like, what more do you want? Like, I mean, am I tripping? Am I like, I mean, are you seeing some of these comments? Like, do you think that this is part of like the diehard fandom, or do you think these are just people that are just randomly like, okay, we're going to stir some things up and see if we can ruffle some feathers?
So this is what I think. I think it's a little bit of both. I think it's people stirring it up. I think it's people that also are diehard fans that kind of feel that Disney's trying to make up for mistakes that they made, but it's already too late. And I get it. You know, the diehards, like many of us, kind of feel like, okay, well, you already made your bed. Now you've been lying in it and you don't like how it feels. Now you're trying to backtrack. It's like it doesn't work. But here's the funny thing. This announcement at Galaxy's Edge about Darth Vader and the original stormtroopers and Luke, Han, and Leia, meet and greets and walk around characters is coming the exact same time there is a massive transformation happening at Lucasfilms with Kathleen Kennedy leaving Lucasfilms, which a lot of Star Wars fans and many communities have hated Kathleen Kennedy and the management style that she's ran since she took over Lucasfilm, and felt that she ruined it and ruined Star Wars, ruined Indiana Jones, but mainly Star Wars.
And that
And
was going to be a question of mine. Like, do you think that is a power play, even though it's in the Disney parks? But do you think that was like a blessing, so to speak, from Lucasfilm to say, you know what, we're shaking it up here, you know, behind the scenes, you know, getting a new president and what have you. Let's do some shake-up changes in the parks as well. Do you think that does have a tie-in?
I think it does have a tie-in, but I see both sides of the aisle here. I see that the diehard Disney fans and Star Wars fans are already coming out saying it's way too late. Then you have the other side saying, "Oh, well, finally you guys are bringing it. I'm glad you're bringing it, but it's too late." Then you have the third piece of the puzzle that wants to stir up arguments online, and online is basically the best place to stir up arguments because you'll get people all freaking day long going back and forth saying, "Well, what we're still not going to visit this land. Disney's in desperation mode." So it's like you got all this crazy stuff, but I think what is going to fix the problem is, again, this is a good start by the Walt Disney Company and possibly the new CEO. Because I said this on Orange Grove 55's channel earlier tonight because we recorded a video. I said this right here, and I've even told you this, George, as well. This decision by bringing Dark Vader as classic stormtroopers, by bringing classic characters like Han, Luke, Leia, Chewbacca, possibly maybe other characters like maybe Anakin Skywalker a little bit more because I know he's come out for Season of the Force. You might have Obi-Wan, you might have a Yoda, you might have a C3PO walking around. That'd be awesome. But is that gonna fix Galaxy's Edge? No, it's not. And they made some other announcements. Oh, yeah, we're gonna make some changes to Oga's Cantina. We're gonna make changes to the First Order store next to Kylo Ren's ship. We're gonna make changes to Droid Depot. We're gonna make changes to Sabi's workshop. Then they're still gonna have Rey and Chewie by Rise of the Resistance, which don't even get me started on that. And then you're gonna have the Mandalorian kind of in the marketplace area. Um, but I think what would really fix the timeline, and I don't even like calling it a timeline. I think timeline for Galaxy's Edge is such a negative term of a word that's gotten so much twisted ideas about it. So I don't even like saying timeline. I think what would fix Galaxy's Edge is what they're doing right now, bringing all these classic characters and villains to Galaxy's Edge. But not just that, have more roaming characters like we were promised in the first iterations of concept art that we saw from Galaxy's Edge. And George has said this a million times. Never, ever, ever, ever get married to concept art. But I think Galaxy's Edge is the one exception to get married to concept art. Because when we saw renderings, we saw concept art, we saw clips and whatnot, little videos here and there. It showed kinetic energy where we had roaming characters from the Star Wars franchise and movies and all that interacting with guests. There was a lot more energy throughout the land. There were um, ideas they wanted to bring that they didn't, like the Bantha ride, which would have been the third attraction. Then we were supposed to get that Galactic Star Cruiser restaurant that went down sinking with the hotel. That was a massive flop. Then we were supposed to get I think some other things that we didn't get. And then I
And also too, that's going to be added into Galaxy's Edge, which again I think was like blasphemy and like a punch to the face that it shouldn't have been there when it first opened. Was we're actually getting the original John Williams score
yes,
music that's going to be playing throughout the land. That when you first enter in Galaxy's Edge, you're going to hear that the the actual like anthem of the Star Wars music. It's like, why didn't we have that from the beginning?
and I agree with George. Why did we not have that from so to kind of tie in to everything I just said, I'm going to be very honest with you folks. When it came to building a Star Wars land, okay, when it came to build a Star Wars land, the name Galaxy's Edge, Batu should have never, ever, ever, and I mean ever, been part of that. It should have been the original trilogy with the original characters being on Tatooine or one of those original planets
Well, I
with the
think that's what,
classic
like, when they
characters.
first made that announcement, because when Iger first made the announcement, I don't believe it was titled yet as Galaxy's Edge
It
Bought.
wasn't.
It was they just called it a Star Wars Land, and he said we're building two, one at Walt Disney World at Hollywood Studios, and then one over at Disneyland. So I think everyone's minds, again, kind of going back to what Universal did with Fast and Furious. When they said it's a Star Wars land, people were thinking, just as you were saying, oh, they're thinking of like the classic planets, Tatooine, Naboo, Hoth, Endor.
Yeah,
Like people are thinking of those classic planets. And then when they say, oh, we're getting a brand new original planet, and then people are, it's called Batu. And then people are thinking, okay, is Batu going to show up in somewhere of the sequels? So it doesn't even show up in any of the sequels. So it's like, it's a planet that no one has no deep connection with. It's so all the more you have to prove this planet to be worthy. Give us something that makes Batu unique. Give us critters and creatures and droids and music, for God's sake. Like something like put something in there that makes it worthwhile. Where when they just gave us this planet, it was an empty shell of a land, because that was also another downside, that Rise of the Resistance didn't open with the land with
it didn't.
Smuggler's Run. That was, I think, a huge. So by the time Rise of the Resistance opened, people were already burnt out of the land because there was nothing to do.
Exactly. And that's something that, again, Disney bragged, which I hate them doing or any theme park company doing, bragging, look, we spent $1 billion. It's like, on what? One attraction that opened with the land, and then on top of that, you sat there and you had a, a planet that no one's ever heard of that you said is somewhere in the timeline. Then you had yeah, there were like George says, there really wasn't much to do. And that is the biggest downfall that I see with Disneyland. Because even to this day, to this moment, you have Galaxy's Edge, which is a Star Wars land based off the prequels instead of the original trilogy. Then you have Tomorrowland, which has no identity, and you have Star Wars Launch Bay that's not even using 1/16th of that building to meet Darth Vader, and the only way you can meet Darth Vader is by a Disney Visa credit card. And then on top of that, you have Star Tours, which again, for its time was amazing, was a wonderful attraction before Galaxy's Edge showed up. Well, before our vision of Galaxy's Edge, which it is today, a disaster, but before it was actually built was a wonderful idea. Um, Star Tours, we've all said it, it does not belong in Tomorrowland. Tomorrowland has no identity. When we have the Star Wars season of the Force, May the 4th, please answer me, Disney, why in God's name you would spend $1 billion on a Star Wars land and have Dark Vader, have Emperor Palpatine, have Captain Plasma and the Stormtrooper Brigade walking down the empty um Star Wars launch bay building that was formerly Carousel of Progress, um, in a land that has no identity, but yet on the other side of the resort, you have $1 billion land that is dedicated to Star Wars, but yet you have two different lands celebrating Star Wars. And what God's name hell does that make sense?
And the reason why, and it doesn't make sense, and the reason why they have to hold on to what little bit that they could just to keep Tomorrowland afloat. Because
But
if they move everything out of Tomorrowland, as far as I do agree with you, if you're going
oh
to
yeah,
build $1 billion Star Wars land, you move everything of Star Wars over there.
yeah,
The problem is in Disney's situation is they have nothing to replace it with because Tomorrowland is already the weakest land, in my opinion,
it
out
is.
of all of Disneyland and even Magic Kingdom.
But see, here's the funny thing, George, though, because when you look at it, that New York Times article that came out, it's a great read, folks, by the way. If you have some time, definitely dedicate some time and read that article. It's a long article, but it explains a lot of what me and George and a lot of us talk about nowadays because we reference that thing like crazy.
Mhm.
Um, they even said Imagineering came up with an idea a few years back to revisit redoing Tomorrowland, and Bob Iger and the board of directors denied it, said, nope, we are not doing this. And that kind of ties in to what I want to talk about with you, George, is that with the new CEO, okay,
Which, by the way, folks, at the time of this recording, a lot of outlets are saying we have about a month that
a
we're
month,
going to get the new CEO, whoever he, she, or even they may be, because I'm still not counting out to the fact of that it may be a dual CEO partnership. I'm not going to hold. I doubt it, but you just never know. Especially what just went down with Lucasfilm.
yeah,
It's Dave Filoni, and for the life of me, I do apologize. I cannot remember the young woman's name who is also going in with Dave to kind of run Lucasfilm. But you have the business and you have the creative. So
absolutely,
if Lucasfilm can do it, and here's the thing, the Walt Disney Company did it before.
yeah,
It's not out
Star,
of the realm of it being impossible. It started that way with Walt and Roy.
yeah,
It continued with Eisner and Wells. So it's not like so far fetched that it couldn't happen. But in any case, yeah. So as you were saying, conductor, yeah, because with the CEO, that could be a huge power play. If just to say Demaro is the one, and he is coming from Parks into the CEO role, and he knows he has big shoes to fill, and also a lot of bantha to clean up, so to speak. What a great way to start off as CEO to say, you know what, I worked in parks. I know the struggle that Tomorrowland was going through. I'm going to approve for Tomorrowland to get the TLC it needs. I think everyone would literally, the spotlight would be on tomorrow. It's like, hey,
Absolutely.
you shall lead us now.
Absolutely. No, you're not wrong. And I think personally this is what I think what happened. Because when you think about it right now, Bob Iger is kind of in retirement mode. He's taking it easy, just letting it float by time. Okay. I think what happened is the board and Iger said to the new CEO that's upcoming, that's going to be announced next month. Here, start making decisions. We'll back off and we'll just see what happens.
And who even really knows if it really is tomorrow? He may revert back to the tradition of doing original attractions that aren't necessarily tied to an IP. Because if you do that, then you can have a lot more creativity with Tomorrowland because you're not waiting for a successful IP to drive the land. You can do original material because that was one thing that I disagreed with Iger
Yeah.
was that he was so gung-ho on IP that he said that Expedition Everest was going to be the final attraction that was going to be original that had no IP attached to it.
Yeah.
And sure enough, he kept to his word. It was the last one made. That was back in 2006.
Yeah, it was. And I completely disagree with that to the point where Iger should not stopped making original attractions based off non IP. And the thing I would like to see this go around is obviously Bob Iger is going to stick around for a year to advise and to help the new CEO transition into the role. Okay. The one thing I want to see the second the new CEO is announced is that Iger, again, will stay on for a year, but he is only there to advise. That's it. No creative control whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
He's done with that. On top of that, you have the board. I feel that the board, again, they are there to protect the company and to evaluate the CEO's, performance. Okay, that's fine. But I feel that the board and Iger have gone in the way of creativity and Walt Disney Imagineering too many times.
They admitted it. They admitted the fact that Imagineering came to them with how many different ideas, and it completely got shot down by the higher head.
Exactly. That's why I kind of feel that the board needs to have less control. On top of that, like I said, as Iger's transitioning out, he only needs to be there as a confidant to the new CEO and suggest things. That's all he could do.
Well,
That's all he should be able to do.
And here's the thing. This is coming at a really good time as far as the placeholder goes for CEO. And here's why. They're going to announce the new CEO next month, which will be in February. I believe they said it goes into full effect at the end of 26. That Iger will step down and the new CEO will step forth as the actual title of CEO closer to the end of 26. Iger will stay on for like a year, as you said, kind of like as a consultant, kind of like to see the transition, make sure everything's running smoothly. So if that's going to be from a year, that means it's probably going to be from the end of 26 to the end of 27. And we're all saying by 2028, that's when we're going to get the whole new next wave of big announcements for the parks, because all the projects that are going on right now will more so either be completed, opened, or almost completed and opened. 2028 will spark the next D23 Ultimate Fan event with the second half of the 10-year commitment Disney promised to spend, what was it, the $60 billion.
Yes.
So by that time in 2028, Iger will already be gone. And whoever the CEO is, if it is tomorrow, he has the full control
He
of the
does.
second half of the 10-year.
And what I would advise tomorrow is, again, we've waited this long, we could wait longer. The second January the 1st, 2027 happens, and Iger is fully out of the picture. I'm telling you right now, that would be the perfect opportunity to kind of hint and tease around Tomorrowland.
And that's why at the last D23, when I was there, and you can go back and rewatch videos when they did the little beginning montage and they were showing all the Disney destinations around the world, Tomorrowland was showcased because Disney actually admitted the fact they did have something planned that was supposed to be announced for Tomorrowland, but they cut it. So that means there are plans in Imagineering that are sitting on the shelves collecting dust. I personally think that if anything is going to be announced big for Tomorrowland, it's going to be in 2028.
Yeah, I think so. But see, there's limitations I also want to see with the CEO is whether it's a single CEO or a dual CEO. I want to make it clear that where the board and the CEO position made a wrong move is by having Iger as both the CEO and the chairman of the board. You cannot have that. It's either you're the CEO or you're the chairman of the board. You can't have both because what we saw was Iger having way too much influence, both as the CEO and the board, the chairman of the board. So if Iger didn't like something, 99.9999% of the time, it got shot down because he had influence over the board and he was the CEO. So whoever the next CEO is, they just stay the CEO, and then you bring back the president of the Walt Disney Company, you bring back that position, and that person will be chairman of the board.
And what I expect from Iger is to guide, is
Yes,
to give an opinion, to consult, to be there for a smooth transition. It is not to dictate and puppet the new CEO like he did Chapek.
exactly.
If you're going to step down, then you step down.
Yep.
And I know
Well,
that sounds harsh, but that's just me being bluntly with the facts.
well, see, this kind of ties into George Lucas with Lucasfilms. Okay. Kind of a little bit different because money was involved, but same concept. George Lucas did what he wanted with Star Wars. He did what he wanted with Indiana Jones and Harrison Ford, both with Star Wars and Indiana Jones. Then he's all like, you know what? I've had enough. I want to focus on my life and my goals past Star Wars. So he sold the company to Disney. This is the same thing, like George is saying, in a way. If Iger says in public statements, I'm stepping down as CEO by the end of 2026, and the new CEO will have full control, that means, in layman's terms, I will have no more decision making on behalf of the Walt Disney Company. I'm done.
Now, the other thing I am concerned about is just to say, hypothetically, if it's not Josh tomorrow,
Uh huh.
I don't necessarily know if Josh is going to stick around in the position that he's in, knowing well that he was going for the CEO position and he didn't get it, because that happens a lot. If he
Okay,
steps away as the parks chairman, then that means we're going to get someone else as a different CEO other than Demaro. But then they're also going to have to find a replacement for Demaro for chairman of the parks. Even
absolutely.
if Demaro does get promoted to CEO, they're going to have to find a replacement for him for parks.
Yes,
But it's different when you're transitioning from parks to CEO, because that way he has a say so in who his predecessor is going to be for parks. If he just steps down from parks because he doesn't get CEO, then that means the board and Iger, before stepping down, or even the new CEO, has to hurry up and come up with a replacement for parks. And that worries me, because if they make a fast judgment call and say, okay, we just have to get someone in there to be the parks chairman, we'll work things out later, they could then end up throwing a whole monkey wrench in everything that's been promised to us for the parks. So, in
absolutely.
a way, by default, I know this may sound bad. I hope Demaro does get the CEO position.
Absolutely, because I could tell you right now, it's not a guaranteed fact, but if Demaro doesn't get the CEO position, and like George says, he's like, you know what, I've had enough, I'm leaving. What a perfect opportunity Universal would have to nab him and have him part
Oh, I could
of
see
Parks
Universal
at
doing that. I
Universal.
can see Universal doing that, because that is the one thing that Universal doesn't have, is the face.
Yep.
And Demaro has the face. He can smooth talk. He could sell uh an empty jar to a person. I know I'm butchering my analogies. I'm not with it today. Um, but um, but you know what I mean. He's a great salesman. He can pitch anything till the cows come home.
Exactly. No,
Um,
no, you're not wrong though. It makes perfect sense. So in all reality, it is crucial that the Walt Disney Company names him CEO because
because
if
it's
they
it's a
don't, it's
domino
gonna
effect.
be it's gonna be a massive downfall.
Yeah, it's a domino effect. It really
Yeah.
is. And it's nothing against Dana Walden. I'm for sure she does great work at what she does. But I'm going to be very honest with you. I don't even know what her voice sounds like. I never heard her do any kind of big public speaking. I don't really know anything too much about her. So just to say, if she gets the CEO, and yes, I get it, she does major like in business and everything, she would know how to run the studio and that side. That's a
Sure.
good thing. But then again, as I said, not knowing who she really is, she's coming in as CEO. Demaro steps down completely off of Parks. And then who even knows who they then put in as a replacement? And then I didn't even think of that until you said it, that if Universal finds that opportunity, offers him the gold plate special, so to speak, and he ends up taking it, it's like, okay, well, then, Disney's in a little bit of a deep doo doo again. So Disney has to be careful with their decision making. And even if something does arise where it does affect one over the other, because as I said, it is going to be a domino effect one way or the other, you have to know how to come back from it. You can't dig a deeper hole that's already a hole. You have to patch the hole.
You do. You honestly do, and there are things besides Tomorrowland, besides what I have reason to believe he is involved in with this whole change in Galaxy's Edge. But there are other things that the Disney company um over the years has lost. with the studio side not producing great movies. Then you have in the parks, there are some areas where we don't have entertainment back, which we lost. We've there's been experiences that used to be complimentary that are now being charged for. Um, there are projects like perfect example, Napa Rose at the Grand Californian. Let me ask you this, folks. How long, for real, and I'm being serious, how long does a restaurant, one little tiny restaurant that probably could fit 100 people inside this restaurant take to remodel and open? I feel like it's the Tron situation all over again.
I think Disney's problem with that, and I could be wrong, and correct me, folks, if I am. Comment down below because I'm not a business major. I wish I did dabble in business. I think I probably would have been kind of good at it, but that's not really my forte. But in any case, my thing is that Disney does. I really wish that they would set a budget annually, not quarterly.
Yes.
Like set a main amount for the whole entire year and then just disperse it during the times that you need to use it. I don't know like if it's really, and again, I could be wrong that they make a budget quarterly. It's like, okay, we only have this amount of money for like these 3 or 4 months, and then we'll reset the system, and then for the next 3 to 4 months we'll have this amount of budget. I think honestly it puts a detriment on the projects that they do, because then these projects have to sit and wait until it gets approved by the board to say, okay, yeah, you're getting X amount for these 3 4 months, use it well until the next quarter. I don't know, maybe that's just me. What do you think?
So like I said, this is tying back to the board having too much power and the CEO of the company being on the board. You can't have that. And then I agree with you, George. You can't have these quarterly budgets. You can't do that. It needs to be annual budgets. Because again, when you look at Universal, and here I go again, praising Universal, even though their latest Fast and Furious Hollywood Drift decision is horrendous. But again, when you look at Universal Comcast and how they budget their projects, who you know, the time frame on when they plan out the project, when they draw up plans, submit it to the city or the county, and they start building. When they start building, they build fast. We can all agree with that. There have been some projects in past that have taken a little bit longer than it should have. That happens. But for the most part, Universal, as far as I know, they don't go by quarterly budgets. Again, I could be completely wrong, but it seems like they go through annual budgets. Okay. That's wonderful because now it kind of unrestricts Universal Creative to build new experiences at a better time frame. And one thing I like about Universal compared to Disney, which I said earlier on, is Disney, for whatever reason, they love to sit there and be the new kid on the block and say, look at what I'm wearing, basically. Look at these new shorts. I spent $100 on these shorts. You guys like it? Compared to Universal, they might show up in the same schoolyard and not say anything about their clothes. And everyone's all like, wow, you're wearing amazing clothes. How much does that cost?
Yes, that was a good analogy.
Yeah, and Universal's all like, I don't talk budget. I just like wearing nice stuff. So you got one company, which is the Walt Disney Company, loves to announce what the project is, which I have no problem with, but then they open their mouth even more and say, "Yep, we're going to spend $1 billion on Galaxy's Edge," and then you go walk in there and it's like, "You spend $1 billion on this? Are you kidding me?" And Universal Comcast doesn't do that immediately. They wait until they build the attraction, the land, the experience, entertainment, show, whatever it is, they wait until they're at least halfway, three-quarters of the way, or completely done, open to guests before they even say that number publicly. For whatever reason, I don't know why the Walt Disney Company loves to do that. I don't understand that. And I understand they have quarterly earnings, they have conference calls which are made public. But when it comes to something like that, why is it even during those quarterly earnings, why couldn't that be a section of that quarterly earnings call that's not made public? Do people really honestly need to know that Galaxy's Edge had a budget of $1 billion? Does anyone really honestly give two hoots about that, or
Well, and
do
here's
they
the
care
thing, and
about the
even but
experience?
and here's the thing too. It's not even just us not even really caring, which I agree with you. I think a lot of people don't. But if you're gonna put your money where your mouth is,
Uh-huh.
and you're gonna say this cost $1.1 billion or whatever, $500 million or $750 million, then the return of what that project is better show in that price tag if you're going to announce the amount. So
Exactly.
don't say, okay, I'm going to spend $1 billion and then you're going to give us Galaxy's Edge and there's nothing in it.
Yeah.
It's like, again, if you're going to do that, I would suggest to not like flaunt out the amount that, to showcase that. I mean, I do get that it probably has to already be on public record of how much something costs, but let it just be part of public record that people have to do their own research if they really want to search it. But when you come out and you say, "Oh, we're building a $250 million renovation to this," and it's like you don't need to put the price tag to it. Just say what you're going to do and be done with it.
Exactly my point. And I again, I hate that Disney does that. I don't like that they do that. I wish they would just keep that to themselves and just mainly focus on, you know, the creativity, the entertainment aspect of the company, both on the theme park and entertainment side, but also the studio side of things, and stop worrying about budget. I I I, I get it. There has to be a budget, but it's been proven time and time again where when you have a project amount and the higher ups focus on that budget amount and don't focus on the actual things that are going to generate revenue, that's a problem. We kind of saw it, George. Maybe you agree or you don't, but we kind of saw it with Avengers Campus. It was rushed. There was a lot more that was for that land that got cut, and it was rushed. Again, New York Times article. Walt Disney Imagineering wanted to do something with Tomorrowland. Higher up said no. It had no monetary value to sit there and rip the land apart and rebuild it. So they denied it. Then you had Galaxy's Edge. They thought it was going to be cost effective to open the land with one attraction. I don't know why in the hell they would think that, because most people, I'm going to be honest with you, do not like Millennium Falcon, because it's a attraction where you actually have to work on the attraction. You don't get to really enjoy it. You're actually working, and it's kind of insane. It's like, so I don't know. I don't know where the company's going with that. I don't like it. And then again, going back to Fast and Furious, which is the title of this video, is I think Universal uh, uh, pulled a Disney move by saying, we're worried about budget. We're worried about, possible contract with Vin Diesel and the Fast and Furious franchise. So the only way to fix this problem is to duplicate the same attraction, obviously a different layout, because one's on a hillside, one's on flat ground. And since we already went that far, let's sit there and keep the name the same on both the East Coast and West Coast. Again, that's something I kind of feel that was a cop out, and I don't know whether to forgive Universal for that or not forgive them for that. But I'm going to tell you right now, that better be the last time we see something like that, because I think Universal's a lot better than Disney when it comes to that. Now, I agree with George, though, and I've said this before. If you want to duplicate attractions that come from the international parks, be my guest. Because how many of you really have the monetary budget to sit there and go fly to Europe or these other international parks to go experience those attractions? You don't.
And for an example here, folks, recently down in Universal Orlando, the Jurassic Park River Adventure is down for almost a year, I believe, or a little over a year for refurbishment. That there's still speculation that is it just going down for a lengthy refurbishment and repairs from the hurricane damage to the building, or is it going to become the Jurassic World that's out here? And again, to what Conductor was saying, I would prefer them to just keep it Jurassic Park. Yes, does the ride need updates? Absolutely. But I would keep the traditional Jurassic Park over there and the Jurassic World over here, despite having the Velocicoaster, because that way you have a little bit of both. You have Velocicoaster for Jurassic World, and you have the Jurassic Park River Adventure for like the classic Spielberg 1993 blockbuster. Now, ideally, what I would want is to 86 the River Adventure altogether, and let's get the Jurassic Park attraction in Beijing and bring it over here, where we're riding the Jeep vehicle and you have the freaking dinosaur literally chasing you while you're going backwards in the Jeep. That, to me, I would love to see. Are they going to do that? Probably not. But that is, for me, a prime example of that. If you were to replace something that is already existed in another park, let's bring one of the international attractions over to the domestic parks.
And that's kind of what I'm saying about with Universal Orlando and on New York Street. Perfect opportunity. Couldn't have done Ghostbusters. Ties in to the New York theme. Okay.
Well, and then the coaster that originally like goes in and out of the firehouse building, so to speak. So I mean, like that would have been a perfect setup for Ghostbusters. But here's the thing: who's to say down the road that it still might become Ghostbusters? They may just be doing this just to appease whoever, and again to get rid of Supercharge. For some reason, they can't get rid of a Fast and Furious attraction without replacing something with another Fast and Furious attraction. I don't know what it is about that franchise, but something, again, is tied to a contract and clause with Universal and that franchise that for some reason they just can't have it without it being in the park one way or the other.
No, 100%. And that's probably what it is. The other thing I would love to see is a coaster based off Jaws, Because if you think about it, like I said early on, Diagon Alley replaced their Jaws attraction. Okay. And I thought, okay, well, Rip Ride Rocket's going. It would be a high tech, fast pace, you know, roller coaster like a hybrid coaster that we see. I think it's in Dollywood in the George, where it's on the track and it goes in water. Correct?
It's the newest attraction that's gonna be premiering, I believe, this year at Dollywood. Yeah, it's a hybrid of a roller coaster, either a roller coaster turned water attraction or vice versa.
So you can't tell me if they had that type of attraction, okay, a massive attraction coaster like that. You can't tell me when you're in the water element of that coaster that it would not be freaking awesome to hear the Jaws music playing and see this big, humongous Jaws animatronic coming at you. That would be absolutely incredible. And to kind of see scenes from Amity Island. Are you kidding me? That is like lights out attraction right there.
That would be cool. And I will say that was a bittersweet notion, that the fact that they got rid of Jaws. I know that that attraction had multiple issues operational wise, like even
Yeah,
from like opening. I get it, but man, was it? And it still exists over in Universal Japan, I believe.
it does.
But the technicality of that ride and the scope of that ride, that it literally puts you in the water with the shark, was absolute genius. And I don't get me wrong, I do love Diagon Alley. I do love Escape from Gringotts and everything, but man, do I miss the classic Universal Jaws. I know we get a little taste of it over here with the tram tour, but it's not the same as what the actual attraction was down in Orlando.
No, no. So again, I hope, since they've already made their mind up about duplicating this ride, I hope the name changes. That's all I ask for, because the Hollywood Drift in Orlando does not make sense. At the very least, change Hollywood to Orlando and I'd be okay with it. And maybe, to be honest with you, if they want to go a step farther, have different ride vehicles and leave the original concept ride vehicles like Dom Toretto's Dodge Charger, Brian O'Connor's what was it? Um oh my god, see, I'm drawing a blank. Brian O'Connor's car, what was it? A Mitsubishi, or see, I'm
Possibly. There's like how many different, but I do agree with you. There's like how many movies to this franchise that you could have multitude of different cars
yeah,
that can be part of. Yeah, have so many just be synced to uh Hollywood's, and so many synced to just Orlando.
exactly. If you made those two changes, I'd be okay. I wouldn't like it, but I'd be okay with it because it would be different. But right now, carbon copy track, carbon copy, ride vehicles, carbon copy title of attraction
I'm still
does
very
not work.
curious of how they're still gonna do the track, even though it's a carbon copy of the track, but it's still gonna be different because it's not on a hill.
It
So
is going to be different.
so I wonder like how it's gonna be, because to me, the whole thrill of not even just being on a rotating vehicle on a roller coaster track, but doing it perched on a hill off
Yeah.
of a hillside, like that was the thrill to me. Like, I wonder what's really gonna make like the actual thrill in Orlando, being that it's like a flat area.
So they showed, someone online has a POV of it, George. I don't know if I sent it to you, I don't know if you could find it so we could watch it.
Let's see.
Um,
Is it on X?
I don't know if it was on X. I thought it was on YouTube actually, but
Okay.
there was a rendering of what it looked like. Let me see if I see it. I'm trying to see if I do see it because I remember watching it on YouTube, and I'll tell you what, it was kind of wild. Let's see if I can find it real quick. If I can't, then I'll let George try to find it while I keep going. I don't see it. Okay, so George, look for it because I know it's online somewhere.
Yeah, I'm
Uh,
trying to see
I
if I can.
I think it's from Amusement Insider on
Okay,
YouTube.
yeah, I think that's what I'm looking at right now.
Okay, see if you could share the screen and let's take a look.
Yeah, let's see.
Because this is pretty interesting to me because it will have an element that Hollywood is not going to have, and that's the big I forgot what the hell they call it. I can't think of it.
And I'm not gonna have the volume on just in
Yeah.
case if there's anything, but here we go.
Okay, this is it right here. This is it. Okay, so I like that element right there going over the stage behind. So I like that. Let's see. This right here. That's what it's going to have that Hollywood's not going to have. That right there.
Oh.
That Hagrid's motorbike adventure actually has.
Okay, so wait, so it's basically like a sidewinder, so to speak.
Yeah.
So you go through the whole motion of the coaster, then you're gonna go up, stop, and then revert backwards through the same path. But
guess
whatever whoever's in the last car would then be in the front and vice versa.
I think so.
That right? So let's see how, but if they have multiple cars on the tracks, let's see.
But again, this is not final concept art.
Right.
Folks.
This is just like
Someone just made a mock-up of it.
right.
But this is pretty interesting. But see, I'm not seeing, and again, I'm trying not to get married to concept art. I understand that.
Oh, I see what they
not-
did. I see what they did. Okay. Yeah. So then it moves to the different side of the track.
Yeah. I just
And then
don't
it goes
see
to
any
that
theming. So there is a transition piece right
If
there.
yeah, now if this is what the actual coaster will become, then yeah, that's a completely different layout.
Yeah. 100%. It's just,
Whoa.
yeah, that's going to be wild as hell. Oh my God. It comes really close to that building too. Jeez Louises. Wow. Okay.
And then this is where it supposedly goes into like the fire station, so to speak.
Yeah. Which is going to be the station. It looks like.
Yeah. And then they have this version where they just show the whole track layout without the vehicles spinning. So you
yeah.
see what the track is. If again, this is what the actual thing will become.
Yeah. So I'm curious about it. I don't know how they're going to tie it into the Hollywood aspect of it, especially of it being in New York Street.
I honestly think at this point they're just using the title. I really think and again, I agree with you. I think they're just using the title. I think really there has no connection whether it's in New York, if it's in Hollywood, if it's in Chicago. I think they just hurried up just to say, yep, we're just doing a replica. Let's just throw it in there so we can get rid of Supercharged.
Yeah, but see, my whole thing is how hard is a title to come up with?
Oh, yeah. I mean, they could have easily titled it Fast and the Furious they don't even have to say the name of the city. They can call it like just something drift. They could call it roller drift or something. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm not 100% sure how I feel about the name, but like I said, if they change the name, which they still have plenty of time to do, and they change the ride vehicles, like they could still twist and turn if that's what they want to do, but be different ride vehicles, I'd be okay with that. Because like George said, in the Fast and Furious franchise, you have plenty of vehicles to play around with.
Mhm.
It doesn't have to be the exact same. Like, for example, you look at Fast Five when Dwayne Johnson's character Hobbs goes hunting for Dom Toretto and his crew and Brian O'Connor because there's warrants out for their arrest in Rio. Okay, why couldn't one of the vehicles be Hobbs's big ass SUV or something like that? Or you have the cars from Tokyo Drift. Why couldn't it be some of those cars? Why does it have to be the carbon copy of what Hollywood's getting?
Really, honestly, now that as you're saying stuff like that, if they really wanted to do something with Fast and Furious of how they can kind of create something, they should have did something like a Radiator Springs Racers,
That one.
where you're actually like in a fast car. Maybe make it go a little bit more faster, a little bit more thrilling,
Yeah.
because it is Fast and Furious, where you're still using the Fast and Furious IP, but it's a
Uh-huh.
completely different ride
Right
system,
system.
ride vehicle. And then at the grand finale, you're on the streets and you're racing because essentially that's what Fast and the Furious was. And then it ended up where you're jumping out of jumbo jets in vehicles that are attached to freaking parachutes, and you're going through skyscraper buildings, and it's like I don't know what like where the franchise went with that, but
Yeah.
I mean, like they could have really went back to the roots of what Fast and the Furious was and turned it into a good old fashioned race attraction. Or I know that they have Stardust Racers over at Epic
I was
Universe,
just gonna say that,
but they could have had a dueling roller coaster.
which would have made more sense
Yeah.
because if you think about it, a dueling roller coaster, you have two trains on the track at one given time, one train on one track, one train on the other, and they're racing each other. That right there fits Fast and Furious to me. And obviously, Hollywood is very restricted, so they probably couldn't have done that. I'm sure there couldn't have been a way, but it would have been a hell of a lot more difficult. But
Mm.
in Orlando, they couldn't have done that. Done a dual
Well,
coaster.
especially because they had the Dueling Dragons roller coaster before it became Hagrid's. So,
Exactly.
so they could have done something like that where, where like the vehicles come real close to one another and you hear the speeding sound of the cars, but it's really the cars on the track. It was like, I don't know. I think they could have done something a little bit more. They could have kept the same concept, but they could have tweaked it a little bit that made it its own. Like
Yes.
for Orlando, I feel like that it made Hollywood kind of get slapped in the face, so to speak.
And
Because it's like, as you said very early on in the conversation, 2 shows were removed for this roller coaster. They had to get real creative by building it off of a hillside. I think they did a tremendous job at doing so. They took all the time that they're now break testing this thing. And then here comes Universal Orlando, kind of stealing Universal Hollywood's thunder by saying, oh, yeah, we're going to have it here too. The same exact replica, title and all. It's like, I think they could have done something a little bit more creative.
they could have, they chose not to. That's why I said it's like it does Universal as a company get a pass from me, or do I scrutinize them a little more when they do stuff like this? My judgment is still up in the air. Like I said, the only way I'm going to make a final judgment is when I ride, obviously, Hollywood Drift out here. And then again, if it's possible, when me and George are out there in 2027, I think we're looking around May, possibly June, to go out there to experience tropical Americas and hopefully maybe Monstropolis at Walt Disney World. If this coaster is open at the studio park for Universal, I would like to go on it and then obviously do a video with George and do a comparison. But again, I agree with George 100%. They stole the thunder of Hollywood Drift, and basically, layman's terms, we lost 2 shows to a park that's already small as it is, limited amount to do to fit this massive e-ticket attraction roller coaster that's the first of its kind, well, now the second of its kind. Um, we lost 2 shows, and what did Orlando lose? 1 roller coaster replacing another roller coaster. Is it
So essentially,
really?
it broke even.
Yeah,
Like
so it's
Orlando's broke even.
yeah, so they didn't even lose anything. We lost 2 shows after this, so it's like, could you have guys come up with a better concept? Absolutely. Could it have been a different IP? Absolutely. Could it have been like a Stardust Racers at least, where it's unique, where you have you have a dual roller coaster track where you have 2 ride vehicle trains racing each other to fit a better Fast and Furious IP? Absolutely. Did you do so? No. Now, again, I'm gonna be fair to Universal Orlando though. We don't actually have concept art of what this coaster is actually gonna look like. The video we just saw from Amusement Insider is this them putting up a mock-up of what they think it's gonna be. For all we
Yeah,
know,
that
it
that's more
could be
like
a
a
dual roller coaster.
yeah, it's more like of a fandom kind of like
Yeah.
creativity type thing. Yeah, we really don't know what this final thing is gonna be. The only piece of information that it gave, which Scott Gustin said, was it's gonna have the 360-degree vehicles and then a 170-foot, uh, what was that, like a spiral spike or something like that? That was
Yeah.
the only thing that I guess they confirmed that's gonna be part of the coaster.
Okay, so this is where we're gonna get in the dangerous territory here. Because once this attraction is ready to open, I really hope Universal learned their lesson with Stardust Racers and the whole Kevin Savala thing, and they make sure they have warning signs all over the place. And if they feel need be, to change the restraint system from the waist restraint to the over the shoulder restraint. That's the only thing I hope
That that
Universal
th
considers.
that I you make a good point at that, because being that this is a new coaster, it's a replica, but it's a new coaster that's not even fully built yet, and it's in the same vicinity of the resort where they had a tragic incident with a guest, in and out of court lawsuits, trying to strike, a compromise with the family and what have you. And the whole thing was just tragic one way or the other. They lost a family member, it was just horrible. But I think Universal doesn't want to do that again. I can definitely see that being the difference where they'll have the pull down harness. Then yeah, I agree with you with that. I think that would be a difference compared with Universal Orlando to Universal Hollywood.
And that's something even Hollywood's version of this coaster should look at as well. Because I think at this point, going forward, Universal, whether it's Intimate, or it's what was the ride manufacturer? It was
It was, oh wait, it wasn't Intimate. It was
oh my gosh,
grr.
drawing a blank. Um, come on, think. It was what the hell was it? It was George is going to find out right now, but regardless, I don't think Universal as a company or any theme park company wants anything happening like that ever again. So if they have to put warning signs out that are extremely, how can I put this? I don't want to use the word aggressively, but maybe I should use that word and have signs literally everywhere saying that if you have these lists of conditions and you're in this situation, we do not recommend by any means necessary that you should ride. um I think that needs to happen. And again, I'm not blaming what happened to Kevin. I'm not blaming Kevin, but
No, so you were right. It's manufactured by Intamin.
what Stardust Racers was?
Oh no, I'm sorry. I thought you said Fast and Furious. I'm sorry. Hold on.
Well, that Fast and Furious is being built by Intamin, but
Yeah.
what was
So you
Stardust?
want to know Stardust Racers? Okay.
Yes. Yeah, it was Stardust. Sorry. Um, but I don't think we need any more situations like that. And if we have to be uncomfortable with the
Mac rides.
Mac rides, okay. So if Mac rides and Intimate, two of the biggest coaster manufacturers that work with Universal, build any more future attractions like these Fast and Furious attractions, and I'm sure more attractions are going to come with Epic Universe, and then eventually the Studios Park, and then Islands of Adventure, and so on, so on, so on. If, as ride guests, we have to be uncomfortable to be safe, I'm okay with that because
Yeah.
I don't think we need any more bad publicity. And again, I'm not blaming Kevin. I'm not blaming his condition, but I think we can all agree at this point, or at least some of us can agree at this point, it's still a very touchy subject. He probably should have not went on that roller coaster to begin with. But that's just my personal opinion. Obviously, he
And I
did.
think that's why Universal changed the fact that if they do want to go on it, that's their decision, that's their right, but they have to be the ones physically to get in and out of the vehicle with no assistance.
Exactly. And that's the next point I was going to make, that they have to be able to get in and out. And if they need help, assistance by someone that's not family related, that's when Universal or any of these theme park companies say, I'm sorry, sir. I'm sorry, miss. You cannot ride this for your safety.
And
That's the end of it.
they can't come back at Universal because now Universal made it literally black and white. It's in their safety clause now. So
Yeah,
it's unfortunate, it'd be disappointing, but hey, you know what? You could be saving somebody's life, and then they don't have to worry about all these lawsuits.
Well, George, let me ask you this. Any future roller coasters, because this seems to just be subject around roller coasters for both Walt Disney as a company and Universal Comcast. Any future roller coasters, do you see this type of signage that we see at Stardust Racers? And for everyone watching this video, when me and George and Tommy and his wife Abby are at Epic Universe, I will take a picture of this sign and reference back to it on future videos. But do you think the sign they put up, they updated and they put up at Stardust Racers, do you think that type of sign will go up on future roller coaster attractions anything like Stardust
I
Racer.
think with Universal, probably because they're the ones that went through, the turmoil. I'm not sure if Disney will. If Disney wanted to kind of save the headache, I think it would be wise for them to do so. But I think just like with any company, they'll leave anything be until, not to be rude, something happens to where they'll have to be forced to make the change.
Yeah, no, 100%. And again, it's not to single out individuals, but it's to save people's life that maybe their body can't handle. And it's nothing against them. It's just who they are and how they are. But if it's unsafe, it's unsafe. Would you rather ride something that's questionable and unsafe to your health and your well-being, or would you rather take the risk? And unfortunately, Kevin did what he loved, and that's what he'll always be remembered as, and that is perfectly fine with me. But in a way, he took a risk, and sad to say he lost his life over it. And I still to this day feel horrible about it. But again, do I personally think he should have went on it? I have my doubts. But again, that's just my opinion alone. But with these future signs warning guests that we now are going to see at Stardust Racers and future roller coasters, especially coming from Universal, the confusion is going to be no more. It's either you personally could get into the ride vehicle by yourself with no assistance, or you can't.
Or you can't, or you don't ride. I'm very curious to see when Hollywood Drift opens here, if they have the same sign. Because I know for a fact they'll have it down in Orlando.
Yeah.
But I'm very curious to see if they'll have it out here.
Well, that's why I mentioned, George, when we are at Epic, I'm going to take a picture of that sign. And I'm going to keep that in my records to reference back. So when we're there on grand opening day, and hopefully we have Vin Diesel there, and maybe Tyrese Gibson, and maybe Paul Walker's brother or one of his brothers, preferably the one that kind of has taken Paul Walker's role in the latest Fast and Furious franchise movies. And we ride the attraction the first day or opening weekend.
Are you kidding? I just want to rub up against Michelle Rodriguez.
Oh, Jesus. Of course you do. See, okay. So this is the George that we all miss and love right here. The guy that says stuff like this. This right here is what I am super excited about. Seeing in Orlando, seeing this guy go wild, and then seeing this other guy, Jared, from Capture the Magic, go wild. And then these two together in the wild is going to be one epic wild. And then things are just going to go off the rails. So I don't know what's going to happen. I'm kind of like culture shocked. I don't know what to believe. I don't know.
I'm sorry. I had to do it. It was right there. It was.
Well, I know you had to.
You mentioned Vin Diesel. You mentioned Paul Walker's brother. You mentioned Tyrese. I'm like, okay, if he's not going to mention her, I will, but I'll do it in my Italiano fashion.
Well, of course, it wouldn't be the Italiano fashion if you didn't do that. But George, is there anything you want to bring up?
I think we covered everything that I wanted to cover. Definitely. Yeah, I want to thank you, conductor, for joining me, as we always have our lengthy discussions. And I knew this was a topic that needed to be talked about, and I knew you were the perfect person to do so, because, as I said, we talked about a little bit over the phone, and I thought, oh yeah, we could definitely make. I was going to guess maybe a little over an hour, but I mean, I was just kidding myself with that one. So we're actually a little over the 2-hour mark. So that's our typical fashion. But yeah, I want to thank you, conductor, for coming on Holo Gelato. And everybody, please comment down below on everything we discussed, whether it proclaims to the Fast and the Furious going into Universal Orlando, whether it proclaims to Disney and the CEO race with Josh D'Amaro, if it has to do with Galaxy's Edge with the original Star Wars characters, anything we talked about, comment down below your thoughts, your opinions, any questions. All that we ask is please just keep it respectful and civil in the comments. And also, too, speaking of our long stretch of conversation, on January 29th, Theme Park Conductor and I will be doing our marathon live. It was supposed to be January 15th, but due to the fact of us coming down with our sickness, we had to delay it a little bit. But that's okay because it allowed us to build up some more topics, which we have a plethora of them to discuss for the live. So we're literally going to start it at 10 a.m. Pacific time, and we'll end it at God knows when. So that's basically the timeline. But in any case, Theme Park Conductor, thank you again for coming on. And if you would like to let everyone know where they can find you on social media.
Absolutely. And again, thank you to Hollow Gelato for being an amazing host. And he's absolutely right. Who is he kidding? An hour? Nah, that doesn't work. We're at least a 2-hour dual.
We're like a 2-hour minimum. I think this is actually our minimum.
Yeah, this is our minimum. So expect us anytime me and him are together and there's a video involved. 2 hours minimum. But like Hollow Gelato says, I'm Theme Park Conductor. You can find me on YouTube and Blue Sky at Theme Park Conductor. You can find me on Instagram at theme_park_conductor. You can find me on X at Theme Conductor, TikTok at Theme Park Conductor 1, and every Sunday at 5 or 7 p.m. for Conductor Sunday live stream, where we talk everything from Disney to Universal, to speculate about the theme parks and the studios, but also talk rumors. We interact with the chat interacts with us. We have amazing guests like the one and only Hollow Gelato with his wild, spicy Italian opinions, which I absolutely love, and his outrageous comments, which are laughable, which I enjoy because it brings me joy. And we have so many other guests, and it's such a great time. And I please encourage you to come check it out. We got a lot of amazing content coming up before we go to Orlando March the 4th. George, I'm going to just list a couple of them, but like George says, we on the 29th, we have the marathon live. That's going on. That's going to be a wild one. God, I'm crossing my fingers on that one because that one's going to be a wild one. We also got at least a couple more times you're going to be on Conductor Sunday live stream. We got probably POV videos we're going to be doing on I think it's February the 5th for DCA's 25th anniversary. We're going to be there for the Magic Key situation. Then we got our special, and I mean special guest. George, you want to tell everyone who that is?
Yes. So before we leave for Florida, our special guest, we're going to have Drew, the Disney dude, coming on. Because, I mean, with him being a Florida local, who better than to have on as a guest before we embark on our Orlando, Florida adventures at Walt Disney World and Universal Orlando than the Disney dude himself. So we're locking down some times and dates. We will let you know when it gets a little closer, but that collaboration will happen before our March trip.
Absolutely. And then one video I know you can expect from both channels, from Hollow Gelato and Theme Park Conductor, is at least several videos and multiple shorts on the 2-day event. We're going on the second day, which is March the this is how wild and crazy me and George are. Just to clarify what's going on here. We are so March the 3rd, the Disneyland Resort is celebrating a one-time 2-day event that's going to be celebrating the 70 years of Disneyland, which I'm hoping is going to have rare characters, rare photo opportunities, rare merch, food offerings, the whole 9 yards, entertainment. And then literally we're going to be there all day, all night, stay at a hotel nearby, literally leave from the hotel, go to the airport, and fly to Orlando. That's how nuts we are, but we love doing it.
That's pretty much that. Yeah, that's us. We're literally gonna leave Disneyland after that after hours event. We're gonna stay a one night at a hotel, and yeah, we're literally booking right to the airport and heading to Orlando the next. Technically, it's going to be that day because I think by the time the event is over,
oh my god,
it's going to already be into the next day.
So as Haunted Mermaid 13 likes to say, one of our great moderators here on Theme Park Conductor, Team No Sleep is going to happen at least the first, if not second day.
So really, your first time, you actually get to hit a goal because if it does surpass midnight, you can then actually say you've been to Disneyland and Walt Disney World in the same day.
Okay, I'm doing it. Disney, do not shun me by closing an event at 10 p.m. Make it midnight and I'll be happy. Okay. You want to celebrate happy? That's how you make me happy.
I like that.
Right there.
If you want to celebrate happy, I love that.
You make me happy right there.
Oh, that's great. But in any case, folks, we want to thank you so much for joining us today. And I'm George, the Disney Italiano. And as I always say, in Disney Italiano fashion, stay safe, stay healthy, stay Disney. Italiano out.